Welcome to episode 17 of the Red 78, the Rugby channel's home of everything Munster Rugby. I'm Alan Quinlan, and with me as always is Niamh Briggs. How are you, Niamh?
Good, Quinny. How are you keeping?
Very good, very good. Looking forward to Six Nations now starting this week and being busy for the next couple of weeks. But we'll obviously have a look back at the Zebre match at the weekend and then look ahead. Munster have no game this weekend, so we've no game to look ahead to, but we'll analyse the game in a minute and go through some talking points. We want you to be involved as always, so you can always tweet us at Rugby Channel 15, or else you can tweet Niamh or myself at our own Twitter pages. Leave a comment on YouTube if you want. We have some thoughts here from the weekend, Niamh. Let's see what you make of them. So we're going to talk. I put a tweet out again yesterday.
You're very active. You're very active on the Twitter now, I have to say.
Well, we want to try and get some comments and the feel for what people think of all these performances. So I'm just going to read out some of them. You can comment on them. This is from Adrian O'Donoghue. Always a good sign when a team win on the road, but the conversation needs to be about Jack O'Donoghue, natural leader, youngest player to get 150 caps, can play anywhere in the back row. And yes, not even in the conversation for the Ireland team. We should mention, for anyone that doesn't know, Munster won 34-17 over in Zebre at the weekend. So that's one on Jack O'Donoghue. From Kevin, some of the commentary around the performance, especially on RTE, was nonsense. It was kind of a game you go and win, get your 5 points and move on. To be complaining about the style was just daft for me. Young lads get experience, win away, happy days. This one is from Ger Hawk. Good win, great to see so many young lads who lined out for the clubs the previous week in the All-Ireland League, that's one that comes up a lot. A lot of these players did play in the All-Ireland League. Another one from Paul Maher. A win is a win. It's hard to interpret or not interpret what that means. Lots of improvement needed, but it was clear that the team that played has not played together in a long time. Jack O'Donoghue was immense again, goes quietly about the business, makes a huge difference. So overall, lots done, more to do. Anya Cahill, seeing the mix of very young, being led by a young captain who's playing out of his socks was satisfying. Chris Farrell had a storm and when he came on as getting back to his best. It was a win for an inexperienced matchday team. Looking forward to mixing them more with our senior players in the coming months. So that's about it. Kieran Ryan Benson. Why has Liam Coombs not been getting more game time for Munster? Incredible footballer who seems to be comfortable playing anywhere from 12 to 15. Powerful man, savage pace, great defence, great hands, and a good boot in him. Would love to see him get more starts for Munster. That's an interesting one in Liam Coombs because a few people, and we've seen glimpses of his quality in the last while, but the general consensus is it was a win is a win on the road. They got 5 points, and it was one of those potential banana skins where unless you get a brilliant performance, you're going to get some criticism. So overall, it was a little bit scrappy. What did you make of those comments or tweets?
Yeah, look, I think they're all fairly accurate, to be fair. I thought great to see so many young guys get an opportunity. And you're right, complete another banana skin that could have been, because you're heading over with a group of young guys who haven't had a huge amount of game time at that level and wouldn't have played a huge amount together, more so than anything. And I think that kind of showed at times, a couple of inaccuracies. I thought it was a really good performance. I thought to be able to go and get a win like that was great. And I agree on so many points in relation to some of those tweets. I think Jack O'Donoghue was immense. We'll speak about him later on. But I've been really impressed with Liam Coombs every time I've seen him play for either Munster or Gary. I think he's been playing incredibly well. I think he offers a huge amount. And here's the issue, we speak about strength and depth all the time, Quinny. Like, look at Chris Farrell, Damien Delande, Rory Scannell. How do you get him in there? And where do you put him? And it's these games for him are crucial because he's got to be able to take his opportunities. But I like what I see in him. And he's different to a Chris Farrell type of a mould. He's got great footwork, good acceleration. And I'm not saying Chris Farrell doesn't. Chris Farrell just seems to be a more powerful kind of ball carry. option. Whereas I think Liam Coombs is a little bit of deception in how he plays, so I like him. So, yeah, look, I thought it was good. Lots of interesting combinations. Interesting to see how Jake Flannery got on. Mixed the good with the bad, I think, for him in terms of being a little bit inconsistent, but a start for him, which has been brilliant. Your thoughts?
Do you think do you think Liam Coombs is a player that's good enough to play and start in the European Cup game when everybody's fit and available? Do you see enough in him that kind of gives an indication that he's good enough to step up and maybe go on and play for Ireland? One thing I always looked at when I was playing with Munster was young players coming through and inexperienced guys. I didn't view them in a way that, are they good enough to play for Munster? Because obviously they're there for a reason and they get opportunities, but are they good enough to play for Ireland? And the more players you have, particularly young players who come into a squad that you think are good enough to go on and play international rugby, well, that's just a big plus then for the provincial side, because that shows that they're not just at that level, they can go to a different level. Is someone like Liam Coombs good enough to go on and play at the next level, the highest level?
He definitely has potential, but I just think it's very much in his own hands now. You've got to see these guys push on. And, you asked me a question earlier on in relation to, players that could play from this team at a full strength Munster and, as you say, could push on for Ireland. And, these guys are 22, 23, and we're all thinking they're really young. And then you look up the road and you see the likes of Dan Sheehan, who's Cian Kelleher, Marcus Smith across the water, Entamac, Dupont, these guys that are getting huge amount of chances very, very early because they seem to have that little bit extra. And are these guys not giving it a chance, or are they not afforded opportunities to show that they have that bit extra, or are they late developers? And that's the big thing, because, that back three, even the other day, like Calvin Nash is an exceptional player, ridiculously quick feet, just can't seem to get a run without injury. And then for me, Shane Daly's, I just think he's an unbelievable player. From I see him play, I think he's working through a huge amount of development. Having been with Ireland last summer, and then not to be there in November, I thought might have been frustrating for him. But I can also see why, because he's not playing a huge amount with Munster. Why aren't these guys playing is what I'm saying. If they're good enough, is it because the strength and depth? Is it the fact that Earls and Conway are so far ahead? And that's a tricky one.
Okay, so we both agree, and it's the general consensus that it was a scrappy performance. But obviously, when you go to Italy in a situation like they were in, 11 changes, they're playing against the Zebre side with a new coach. And Zebre, even though they haven't been winning games, they're very, very difficult. They're very physical. They're a very difficult side to analyze. I watched some of them before this game, and there's no great pattern or structure to what they're doing, and they're hard to analyze. So look, I think it would have been a difficult one for Munster to kind of say, well, what structure did they play? Did they keep going the same way? Did they keep it tight? They've lots of good individual players, but I think as a team, they're very physical and can make it really difficult for you. So I think overall it was a very, very positive result. I think if you look back and analyze the game, there was lots of mistakes. There was some decision making where it should have been moved through the hands that players decided not to. They kept it tight. Probably a no-win game from a public perspective, in a sense that unless you had this clinical, brilliant performance with this group, and a lot of these players would have played over in Scarlets, where they scored 6 tries and they got that bonus point win against a very strong Scarlets side a couple of months ago. Everyone was kind of giving high praise to the team. This was somewhere in between, but I've been there. I've gone to, Benetton. It used to be Treviso and Zebre, and been involved in these type of games. They can be tricky. And I think the mitigation probably for some of those mistakes and some of the frustrations that people viewing the game would have had was these guys haven't played together. Some uncharacteristic errors as well that need to be kind of ironed out, but a bit of a learning curve. And we spoke about probably finding a bit of a ruthless edge with this group now that they're internationals away. Did we see glimpses of that? they scored 5 tries and they were
Yeah.
pretty dominant, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, set piece, as you said earlier on, was good. Jack Donoghue's try, I thought, was very good, very well taken. And we looked to move the ball to space. I just think that you're 100% right. It was just timings and inaccuracies that will probably have frustrated them. They'll be frustrated with that too. You know what I mean? There's no two ways about it. But, a couple of long kicks. But to be fair to them, I think that they kind of probably stuck to their processes. And like, you're looking at that pack there now, Quinny, like, who stood out for you in that in terms of like playing well?
I thought John Hodnett was
super.
He's one of the ones that I remember this really well with John Hayes at training one day, and Dennis Leamy arrived and started training with us, and we were doing contact session with pads, and I just remember Hayes and myself kind of looking at ourselves saying, who's this fella? Like, he was aggressive, he was physical. And as the session went on, you could see him really kind of having kind of impacts and looking like he was. And I remember Hayes and myself spoke about it afterwards, and we said, he's not just going to be a Munster player, he's going to be an international. Now, I'd heard about Dennis and I'd seen him play school games for Rockwell, and he was brilliant. John Hodnett reminds me of someone like Dennis Leamy. I really feel that, even his leg tackles, it's chop tackle. He's powerful in the carry. He's intelligent, gets around the field. I think he'll develop more. And I think he's one for me that's kind of standing out, saying this guy can go to a different level and he can be a starter in the European games going forward. It's a very competitive area, obviously, in the back row. I think Liam Coombs is one. I like what he does. I think he's a very balanced runner. He's big, he's quick, really good hands. Jack O'Sullivan is another one. Just there's something about him that indicates to me that he can go up to the next level. I was disappointed for Thomas Ahern because I believe he can go to the next level as well, getting the injury when he came on. So there's a number of them there. Finian Wycherley keeps, his performances at a very consistent level. Is he big enough, and is he going to take the step up to international level? He's played a couple of times, been involved. I really like him. I think I'm a fan of his. Dermot Byrne has potential to really kind of step up to the next level as well. But he's obviously got to start on a regular basis for Munster and in all those big games. So a lot of positives out of those performances. I think Jack O'Donoghue was someone we're going to talk about in a minute. I think he's, in the last few weeks, he's been really, really good. Lots of intelligent decisions, lots of big involvements. And we did speak about Jack a few weeks ago when he played in Connacht, when he captained the side and probably got a bit distracted, and like his teammates, didn't have his best game. But I think his reaction since has been very important, very positive. One point I will say, and we spoke about the attack, and not for a need for Munster to go to wing over and back, but just to have more energy, enthusiasm, a bit of more tempo and pace in their game. And I think one of the areas in the last few weeks that's been so much better is their efficiency at the breakdown and their speed of breakdown. And you know this as a coach, if you're getting quick ball, even if you're being direct and you're just going one or two passes out from the breakdown, you're testing a defense. You're not letting them get set. You're having, each ruck is quicker and quicker, and then you're given an opportunity to put the ball in players' hands and give them a chance to attack and run at their opposition. So I think 62% of their rucks at the weekend against Zebre was under 3 seconds, and that's a big indicator and a factor that we've seen improvement there in the last few weeks. And we saw it in the Wasps game. Look at the Conor Murray try early on. It was 21 phases. There was an aggression, there was an enthusiasm. But the most important thing, there was an accuracy about the cleanouts. And I think that was an area that was so much better at the weekend. And something that you got to keep building on. I think if you go back to the Joe Schmidt era under Ireland, that 5-year period he had, one of the big pluses was, and why that Ireland side made it so difficult and were a very difficult side to play against, was because they were so physical, clinical, aggressive and accurate at the breakdown. And I think it's where Munster need to get to if they're, I think if they want to be competing towards the end of the season. And I think this period of time is a learning curve for a lot of these young players that that they keep that standard pretty high and try and improve it as they go on. They've played 58 players since the start of the season, so that indicates that there's been so much chopping and changing. Do you think in the next few weeks, what do you think we need to see from them, and what can they build on from that game? So for you, the positives from that game and what they need to fix in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, look, I think we've spoken about it there. I think the fact that a lot of young guys getting opportunities at senior level, and coming away from Zebre with a bonus point. Look, wasn't the game for the ages. So I think when you come away from that, you just got to be happy. I think going forward and what we're looking at, I think you want to see consistency for these players. I think the most difficult thing is that you get in for one game and you don't get back in for 4 or 5 more. You get in for 2 games, you don't get back in for another one. That's a really difficult thing to do because it's a huge amount of pressure on your shoulders when you know that you're only going to be playing 1 or 2 games every 6 or 7 weeks. And this brings us then to another issue. Are the squads too big now? Do we feel like we have to give a huge amount of game time? And to be fair to Graham Rowntree, he spoke about it in his press conference last week. He said, the next 5-6 weeks are going to be built around getting as much players game time. And for me, I was just like, okay, that's brilliant because we need to get as many players game time, but also we're not giving players opportunity to find their feet, to be consistent, and for them to get comfortable at that level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And obviously it was great for Jake Flannery. I think a little bit of a mixed bag, the intercept before halftime, but I think we saw glimpses there of his quality. And great for him to get that experience. Neil Cronin got player star of the match. So I think it was great for Neil Cronin to get game time as well. Roman Salanoa coming off the bench, Scott Buckley. There's something about Scott Buckley that kind of has the ingredients to go higher. I think it was good to see Roman get some game time. I'd love to see him get more involvements and show his power. Alex Kendall as well. And Chris Farrell had moments when he came on. I thought he looks like a player who's really trying to get back to the level that was pushing him close to an Irish side. And so overall, it was positive. 5 tries, Jack O'Donoghue, Dan Goggin. It was a great try from Dan Goggin as well. He hasn't played in a while either. Finian Wycherley, Josh Wycherley, and Dermot Barnes. So we'll give him 65, 70 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
A 7, maybe a 7 out of 10. So it was a positive result. Very important that they got the 5 points because they now put themselves up to 5th on 29 points. Edinburgh are first. So if they win their game in hand, they could go ahead of Edinburgh on points difference. Now Leinster are in 4th. They have a game in hand as well. The 3 above have played 9 games. So I think and we did speak about that a few weeks ago. They can't afford to lose any ground in those top couple of those teams ahead of them. Okay, so we're going to fold that away, bin that one, and say lots of positives, but plenty of negatives as well. But overall, it was a job well done. We're going to move on to our next piece, which we started last week, was Are You Watching Andy Farrell? So it was your job this week to pick a player, and who's that player?
Yeah, so my player this week is Jack O'Donoghue. And look, I am very, very aware of how competitive the back row is in Ireland and, who you're dropping to bring him in. I think he's just had such a brilliant season and he is literally playing so well. You've got to try and find a way to get him in there, I think, almost. I think it's very difficult to think that of the 38 or however many players selected for a Six Nations squad that he's not in there. In the best 38. I think that's it's probably tough for him to take, knowing that you're churning out these brilliant performances. Youngest player to ever reach 150 caps. He's obviously the next natural leader in that group after Peter O'Mahony, because Mahony's not playing. Jack O'Donoghue's captaining quite a lot. His work rate is phenomenal. It's his pace over the ground that I can't get over. If you ever sit back and watch him live, for any kick chases, he is almost beating the next chaser beside him. Like, he is that quick. Intelligence is probably one area you'd like to see a little bit work on is the discipline. I think he gives away a few penalties, but I think every back row goes through that. So I just think it's difficult that he's not in there. I think it must be frustrating for him.
Well, Jack has 2 caps for Ireland. Okay, they were against Canada and Japan 2 years ago. One in November and one in the summer tour to Japan. So why is he only 2 caps?
I know, it's funny. Now, I do know that pre-COVID, he was in that Six Nations squad. He was due to play against Italy. And then obviously that game was cancelled because of COVID, and he just hasn't got back in. And I think, after that COVID, you remember when the games came back?
Is it a problem for him that he plays 6, 7, and 8? Is that it? Is that the sometimes versatility?
Jack of all trades, master of none type of an issue?
Maybe, it's when you nail down a spot and okay, most 8s and 6s can play in both. Well, let's say most 8s can play 6. I'm not sure all 6s can play 8 because it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Would you have played 8?
I did a little bit. Yeah, I played 8 underage, but not really for Munster. A couple of times for Munster. I think Anthony Foley went off in 2002 in a semi-final against Cass down in Montpellier, I think, and Donnacha O'Callaghan came on in the back row and I went in number 8, and I remember Declan Kidney shouting in messages saying Wally's to go number 8, I'm go 7 and Donnacha 6, but I just kind of stayed at number 8 and ignored him and I felt I could do the job there. There was no breaking off the back of the scrum. It was just control the ball and let Stringer take it out and pass it. But it's a little bit different. Right. It's a little bit different, but I think maybe that, possibly it could be an issue for Jack, that his versatility. What are his strengths and who is he like?
See, it's very difficult. Like, his strengths are, I think his game intelligence is probably one of the best in back row, in the depth in Ireland. I think that people might think I'm crazy, but if you watch him live, it's ridiculously athletic. Very good on the floor. Who is he like? It's kind of hard to he's not really like anybody else in Ireland, I don't think, to be fair, because he's so quick. He's quicker than a lot of them, but probably not as physically big as most of them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, he's 6'3" and probably 108 or 7 or 8 kilos. I was 6'3" and 108 or 9 kilos. He is similar size, so I don't think size is an issue for him. I think one thing is I'd love to see him get on the ball more and be more explosive and aggressive in the real physical exchanges, because I think he's a really, really good footballer.
Do you not think, though, that the way Munster plays, so the way they're set up, that he's usually out in that 15 channel?
Yeah, and he's
because of his pace.
He's very strong athletic.
Pace, and you're looking for mismatches across the back line. Then
he's very athletic, and I think, look, one of the issues, and it was an issue for me in my career. There's just sometimes you have guys who are at a level that's very hard to get to. Doris, Jack Conan was on a Lions tour. Peter O'Mahony was a Lions captain. Josh van der Fleer has been exceptional.
And I get that, and they did say to you.
I think maybe one issue for Jack is maybe just getting more involvements and being more explosive in those tight areas when he makes those carries. And look, there isn't any kind of quick fix solution here or ingredient to say, I think you got to work on that a little bit more, because I'd hate for him at 27 to be this player who doesn't get more caps. I think he deserves more opportunities. But first and foremost, you've got to be incredibly consistent and dominant for your province. And I think we've seen glimpses and moments in the last few weeks that would indicate
Quinny,
Jack is well able to play at this level.
And
last year, he's been man of the match in so many games. But I just think to get an opportunity with Ireland, he needs to get a bit of luck, get a game in one of the big games, and show probably people, because sometimes perspective is an issue. I had it at times that you're seen as this safe pair of hands when you go up with Ireland, and you'll do a job. But if other people are available, like, look, I was competing with Stephen Ferris, Simon Easterby, Sean O'Brien, Jamie Heaslip, Dennis Leamy. phenomenal players, all incredibly explosive. Simon was probably the least explosive. I mean that respectfully to him, but he was brilliant in the line-out, and he was actually incredible at the breakdown and a real good leader. So it's tough for Jack, but I think his performances have been brilliant. He's nominated for European Player. 15 players have been put forward after the pool stages. Now, there's people giving out about Antoine Dupont. I'm on the judging panel, and I can't give anything away who I nominated or voted for, but there's a couple of players in there who've only played 2 games, and Dupont only played 1 game. But I just think the reason...
It's Antoine Dupont, come on.
No, I think people are saying it. I saw it on Twitter, and EPCR put up the 15 players, and I think people are kind of giving out. But the reality is, if Dupont and Toulouse do well in the round 16, progress to quarterfinal, semi-final, there's every chance that he's going to be the one that wins them a European Cup. Again, players can change on this as well, I'd like to say, after round 16, but players can be added in for the next, because you pick 5 then after the semi-finals.
Jesus, that's a big responsibility. Like,
well, there's a number of people. I was on it the last couple of years, excuse me. But I think it's brilliant for Jack. I would argue and say that there's a certain Tadhg Byrne should be on it as well.
Yeah, I agree.
And because he's been brilliant. But look, it's great for Jack, and I think that's
and a good Waterford man as well, which so many good things come from down there. Quinny. So, so look, I think we'll see what happens. But I agree. I'd love to see him just get another cap. Get capped again.
You're saying to Andy Farrell. So, are you watching Jack O'Donoghue, Andy Farrell?
Yes, absolutely.
Keep an eye out on him, not for this Six Nations, but going forward. There's a World Cup in less than 2 years, so there's no reason why Jack shouldn't be aiming to try and be in the mix for that. But Paul O'Connell, we'll add him in as well. Are you watching Paul O'Connell? Keep an eye on the Munster fellas. But okay, so well done to Jack in getting nominated anyway. Andy's performances in the last few weeks. So he's your Andy Farrell. Are you watching Andy Farrell player this week? I'll pick one next week. The last segment, I think we're going to just talk about the internationals. Six Nations starts this weekend. There's 9 Munster players in the squad. How many will start? That's the question. And it's...
Yeah, I love this time of year, Quinny. It's spring. The evenings are getting brighter, and the rugby is usually brilliant. For me, for this weekend, so I'm just taking this weekend in isolation, the Wales game. We'll know, obviously, Thursday. I have 3 starters.
Okay, you have 3 starters.
Who do you have? Hold on, how many have you got before you?
I have 2 at the moment. I have Andrew Conway and Tadhg Byrne.
Okay. I actually put Earls in there as well, because I think... I do think Balakoon will get in there eventually, but I just think Earls, and for now, for the first game especially, because of, you just want to get off to a really good start. So I just think Earls might jump in there as a left winger. But there's a spot available on the left wing with James Lowe being injured, and just given what they did in November, there'd be minimal change to this side. No, I agree. That's why I agree with you.
I think Joey Carbery's back fully training, so whether he gets on the bench or not, I don't know.
Definitely. Himself and Mahoney have to be on the bench.
Okay, so your starters are Earls, Conway, and Tadhg Byrne.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's every reason to believe that Keith Earls will play in the left wing, but I just think Balakoon could throw a spanner in the works for Earls.
I agree. I do agree, but I just think that Earlsy knows that left position so well, and I know that. Well,
he's the most natural. The other 2 are right wingers, really.
Yeah, and I just don't think they're either. I think it'll be a lot to ask Balakoon to start in the left. And it's like a big game like that, right? So you're looking at Conway. I'm just not sure Conway's he's a super player. Don't get me wrong. I would start him on the right. I just don't know if he's as effective coming off the left. But the big one I want to ask you about, right, is think about this. Game time over the last, maybe since November, of all the Irish squad. Do you put Killer on the bench, or does Cian Healy jump him?
It's a difficult one. I think Cian Healy is obviously in a stronger position, and because of his experience, and given that he was the starter for Ireland for probably 7 or 8 years, maybe longer. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
doing him justice. Yeah. He's over 100 caps. Cian Healy has had a remarkable career. Obviously, I think the explosive nature of Dave Kilcoyne coming off the bench gives you great added value, but I think Cian Healy then gives that strength, experience, power. So it's going to be difficult. Killer hasn't played enough of games, I don't think, to in recent months.
Who have you got on the bench then? Have you any other?
Well, I think players? I think Joey Carberry, Conor Murray, Peter O'Mahony. Obviously, Craig Casey won't be on the bench. If Conor Murray's on the bench, I think Gibson Park will start. Whether people agree it's the right decision or not, I think what we saw in November from him was outstanding, and it's a tough one for Conor Murray. But I think that's the way it's going to play out. So it's. Do you think Calvin
Coombs comes in? Does he have a shot? Are we looking at?
No, I think you're looking. Yeah, he might get a chance and get some game time against it. Yeah. I hope he does. But I think Peter O'Mahony is going to be the sub back row, and probably Ryan Baird on the bench because Ian Henderson is out. So the debate around whether Ty Byrne, James Ryan.
Is Ian Henderson out?
Well,
I thought he was due back to train this week.
Maybe he's back, but I think it'll be very, very, very difficult to leave Ty Byrne out of the side.
Yeah, I see. I
think James Ryan starts.
No, I don't see. I thought Ian Henderson should start ahead of James Ryan.
No, I don't.
And I don't know. I just think
it's just that line out work and stuff.
Yeah, I know.
And he's controlled. Although Henderson has done very well in the line out. It's great. The three are brilliant players, and
they're class.
They've great strength there. So I think we'll have. Yeah, it'll be 13. Will it be 13 Leinster players and 2 Munster again? Maybe.
I think so.
No.
Yeah.
If Ballacloon starts,
it'll be 1 Ulster, 2 Munster, and then. But if Ballacloon doesn't start and he goes with Earls, then we're looking at 12 Leinster and 3 Munster. But Munster then are mostly filling that bench as well, which is
there's a lot of experience there. Well, it is what it is, and they've got to start.
They've got to start. They've
got to start beating Leinster on a regular basis to change the tide on the Irish team.
Yeah, but I think coming back, like they should be hopping off the ground after such a brilliant November, irrelevant to their provincial jerseys. They all contributed. I think not just the 15, but I think 23. And I don't know if you listened to O'Gara during the week. He had a really interesting point that he loves coaches that don't start their strongest team, that finish on their strongest team. I thought that was really interesting, considering just a lot of Munster boys on the bench.
Yeah, Munster people will be clinging on to that one. But anyway, it's certainly one to look forward to. Start of the Six Nations, and hope Ireland go well at the weekend. Munster's next game is Friday week, away to Glasgow, which is a tricky one, and then they've got Edinburgh at home the following week. We got to leave it there. That's it for episode 17 of the Red 78 done and dusted. We don't have any provincial action to talk about this week, but we look at the Six Nations game and we look back on that and see what kind of an impact the Munster players had, and all the players. Let's hope Ireland do well and start this, because I think they're in a great position. We look forward to obviously the Glasgow game and the Andy Farrell segment as well. So I've got to pick someone for next week. To make sure you get the podcast straight to your phone, just search the Red 78 wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe. And don't forget to get in touch with your thoughts. We'll put out a tweet, Niamh and myself, and you can leave some comments on whatever news is happening or any breaking news. We're kind of waiting to see when the coaches are going to be announced, and there's no update on that yet. But that's it for this week. Thanks for listening, and thanks, Niamh, to you.
Thanks, Quinny.